It's the production professionals power hour. Building better shows with skill and power. Live hybrid online too. Sharing what the experts do. Hardware, software, testing live. Helping every production thrive. Step inside the future's now. Welcome to the power hour. When the pressure's on, we raise the game. New ideas and trusted names. Every week another view. Fresh tech, fresh talk. Something new. It's the protection professionals power hour, where ideas and technology flower for the shows that need to shine, for the moments that go live on time. From the gear rack to the control room view, we bring the best straight through to you. Step inside the futures now. Welcome to the power hour.
Hello. Welcome to the Production Pros Power Hour. I'm John Drinkwater. Hiding in the wings, helping me is Mike Latter from Cross Tracks. This is a show about production professionals. We try and avoid the Z word, but I have to apologize. It will flip in a bit because that's where I do most of my productions. But today I want to talk about the studio, or the event, or the venue. And the problem that I'm having, and I'm getting a feeling a lot of you are also having, it's our old friend, video standards. And the problem at the moment that I can see is you can't run just one video standard anymore. It's just not possible. Look, in a perfect world, I would want to run 4K 60. In a perfect world, I would run 8K 60, but I know that's stupid. In a realistically productive world, I'd love to run 4K 60 for everything. My cameras, for all my screens, for my big screens on the wall. That's why I might like 8K. Big screens on the wall, my studio monitors. I would just like everything to run 4K 60. But for most of us that started in a HDMI world, that's a big investment. There's a big jump between switches and software that copes with 1080 and then equipment that works at 4K. And yes, before Mike catches me out, not all 1080 is the same. And unfortunately, not all tools give us 1080 the same. There is a move by many, including that Z word, to move from a 1080-30 to a 1080-50 or 1080-60 world. But not everywhere. We can't afford. No, unless we got a really big production and we've got van loads of equipment going to our various venues, we're not going to be running a full 4K 60 world. And although they're the big guys with the big budgets and the big equipment, the majority of us aren't in that league, let's be honest. We try and do things similar to, but we're not in that league. So the question becomes, what are you going to deliver to your attendees, whether they're online or in front of you? And the answer to that, I think, is increasingly becoming a mixture of solutions. There are some people who like to stream to YouTube at 2160. Why? I haven't got a 4-letter word to sum them up. I've got a 3-letter word: ego. Nobody in a sensible streaming world at the moment, I suggest, has got any reason to stream 2160. I know from results on analytics that 50% of the people that watch the streams that I do for myself and I do for others are using mobile devices. They can't even read 1080p to a decent level when they're using phones and iPads, and other tablets are available, those two. And I'm on thin ice with this statement, but I'm not sure that most people who are going to stream to YouTube 2160 are going to be watched 2160 by most people with a TV. Because I've turned it on and off and I've reset it. And as far as I can see, I've got TCL, Hisense, and Samsung TVs, and they all default to 1080, not to 2160. Now, somebody may come up with a really technical answer for me, and if you've got one, put it on YouTube. Love to know. But what I'm trying to get the point is that I think most of your virtual audience are never going to go past 1080. You don't want to go past 1080 if you can avoid it because of all the pipe problems, how big a pipe you need to input and output all your data into the internet and out of the internet. If you go 2160, 4K, then surely all your cameras need to support 4K, which they probably do, but they need to stream 4K to you. And I know that a few of them, when you plug them in HDMI, they take you down to 1080. You've got switches, especially the cheaper ones, that say they're 4K switches, but actually their output is only 1080. I'm whispering because I don't want them to hear me telling them off, but they are. There's a lot of things which will claim to do a bit of 4K. I've got a 4K Elgato plug-in thingy, but it's a through 4K. So I can plug it into my gaming machine, and it 4K is into my gaming machine, and it from my gaming machine, and it 4Ks out to my gaming screen. But as far as I can see, the capture is still 1080. So there's lots of places where it's actually difficult to get a 4K signal inside your loop. That doesn't mean that you want to stop a 65, 75, 85, 100-inch TV from being 1080 if it's in the room with people. If it's in the room with people, then you probably want that to be 4K, and you will need to find a way to make sure that you deliver quality content up to them. And don't bring a remote person in at 720 and expect them to look good on 4K, especially if they're using a virtual blurry background, which just seems to make the quality even look worse, in my view. You want to argue with me about it? Just give me some examples where it works, because I don't see any. So this is the challenge. I've got the challenge here in my little mini studio here, because I have a few guests sometimes who come in, and when they come in, quite frankly, I've got some big TVs. I was hoping to have a bigger TV, but it doesn't actually fit in the door, but there we are. There's sometimes technical problems even I can't overcome. But what I'm saying is, if you've got a big screen, you probably want it to be 4K. If you've got users remote or they're on their phones, they don't need more than 1080. In fact, 50 frames a second will probably be annoying for them rather than an advantage in a lot of cases. So this makes the whole world of 1080 and 4K even more complicated. And it's going to get worse, my friends, because I'm seeing lots of products from the Z company and from other switchers and video switchers and even the Blackmagic guys, all these new protocols coming out. There's no way everybody's going to switch to the highest protocol, even if they had the budget, unless they're a TV production company. Because you have to remember that 4K is 4 times 1080. And then if you're talking about 4K 60 compared to 1080 25, I don't know what the maths is, but I'm guessing once you do that, you're talking about 8 times, 10 times the data throughput because of the extra bits you're passing, the extra depth of color and field the depth of the video bits that are defining every single dot on your screen. The fact that you're trying to go away from uncompressed, which is another issue, which is coming to light now. Just like to note, they never told us it was compressed until they started saying, we're going to deliver it uncompressed. You notice that. And then, of course, you've got the bit depth of the color. And I am guessing also from the figures I've seen from various companies that you must be 8 to 10 times the bandwidth requirement of what people have been using. And let's be honest, a lot of us were in a 720p world only very, very recently. And some people still are because of the limitations of their infrastructure. So then you're talking a world that could be 12, 15 times what 720p was at 25 frames a second. My assumptions are just going to make these numbers now unrealistic because I've gone through a stage of assuming figures by about 3 or 4 levels now. But I still think the point is that the data rates that you need for your internet connections, the data rates that you need even for your HDMI leads, your SDI needs to be another level or 2 higher. And it's not possible. So you're going to have to manage it and plan so that the high quality video feeds that you need at the end are produced at the beginning and don't get downgraded on the way from one end to the other. And it's going to be complicated, but that's the world we live in. That's what we have to deal with. And it's a dangerous world because if you've got something that looks really flashy and 4K and looks really good quality in the room of the CEO where you're doing the recording, and then he finds out what a blurry mess you've just sent to another room for another branch office where, I don't know, shareholders are sitting watching the presentation, you got a problem. And as I said, unless you have a ridiculous budget and total control on the whole infrastructure, like a TV production company, let's face it, they still give most of their TV production to us at 1080, then you're going to have to think really carefully because in this new world of mixed videos, I'm worried. Honestly, I'm worried because our credibility as production pros could be undermined in 5 minutes just because one of the devices that we wanted to send data to isn't the quality expected by our customer at the other end. And so this takes planning and organization, and it's another headache for us. But like all these things, these are the problems that we have to solve that the customer never knows existed in the first place. But if you get it right, well, there's going to be a big difference between you and everybody else. So talking about a difference between me and everybody else, let's pull in an expert to see if I've said anything that makes any sense. I've got a feeling I got a few things right, but I'm sure Mike can give us a bit more detail on these things as a distributor of cameras at one end of the system and as a user in a studio that you have. Is this going to be a bigger issue for us this year than last? Welcome, Mike.
Welcome, everyone. How's everyone doing this week? Hope you're doing well. Johnny, frame rates, and oh my. To say that this is a conversation that can keep people in the professional world up at night is an understatement. Because do I shoot everything in 4K or 8K and then bring it down to 720p? Or do I just go, no, I'm going to be that 720p broadcaster and I'm going to only broadcast everything in the world of 720p? And should I have the unfortunate situation, like John just explained, of making sure that 720p looks really, really good in another room or potentially another location, that it's being broadcast on a 4K, if not an, heaven forbid, 8K screen. Now it all comes down to, for us production world people, budget, to be quite honest. To be fair, in the television production world, for me to bring a 1080p truck is one price. And for me to bring a 4K truck is another price. And I'm full stopping there. There is no 8K trucks right now out there.
Well, they stopped making 8K TVs, didn't they? A lot of the TV production said, what's the point of us making 8K TVs? And if you look at the manufacturers, Samsung, for instance, I think they've got one 8K TV left, and they've left it because there are edge cases when people want an 8K TV, but they've stopped rolling out 8K as the big main product.
Yeah, 100%, John. That's right. They've said, they've basically come out with the models that say, we can do it when you've got the content to give me. Right? So that means that, could they make 8K TVs? Yes. They're proving it. All of them have, at least, as John said, one model, maybe two tops. Not 20, not 50 models, but one or two. Why? Because there is no content being made in 8K. And you'll say, but Mike, there is. Mastering is done in 8K for motion pictures? Sure. I'm not saying it's not done. But now we're talking about, you're going to do a corporate event. Am I really going to shoot this at 8K? Somebody standing behind a podium? You could. Is there a lot of gear that you could actually bring into that venue? That would be not a substantial investment, either that or even to be able to rent. Very scarce. You definitely wouldn't be bringing in an Ozbot. You would definitely not be bringing in, you'd have to go to the big boys. You'd have to be bringing in a Sony, Sony, Panasonic, Canon. They may have the lenses for you. They may have the back end for you. Or you may have to start, as the production world does, all of a sudden they will use a Fujinon lens on a Sony body to be able to bring that quote unquote 4K image in. And the only right now content that is truly, for the most part, being shot in 4K and guaranteed will be in North America here in the coming weeks is FIFA. Because the sports world understands that, yes, they want you to be able to see that in 4K. And John was right when John said, okay, now when we're actually watching as a viewer, not us as production people now, but as us watching the actual FIFA at home, unless you actually pay for a 4K sports channel service, you will never get 4K on regular broadcast television right now, or across the world right now. I can say this for North America with 100% accuracy, that they are still at 720p or 1080i. Notice I didn't say 4K. And the frame rate is usually, for US, is usually max depending on the channel, and it's very rare, but usually on average, 30 frames a second. So there you go, where all of a sudden, you know, you want to be able to play that video game at 120 frames a second. Let's be realistic here, everybody. If you're watching a video game on broadcast television being played on a TV show, you are not getting 120 frames a second. You'll be lucky to get 30, right? And then, of course, I'll do the conversion for our friends in Europe, where John is, which, of course, John mentioned 50. So I made sure that everybody on YouTube understood that was for European people, 50 in Europe, 60 in North America. And again, 25 in Europe and 30 in North America as well. So there's your, now again, if you're talking about what we're currently broadcasting to you now, you can take a look at the stats in YouTube and you will see that we are sending you 1080p 30. We are using the Z word, and I'm going to sneak it in quickly, but the Z word is only broadcasting to YouTube at 1080p 30. So if you're watching us on a big 4K TV through the YouTube app, you may or may not have a quality issue. Will it be 100% 4K sharp, like you were watching a Netflix movie that was shot in 8K and they brought it down to 4K? No. Because again, your TV is going to do what they call upscale. But John was right too. When it comes to the different frame rates and the different qualities, and Tony's actually telling us on YouTube that he's seeing a max of 720 on YouTube today. And I'm just going to double check.
We are sending out at 720.
Okay, and Tony's right. Yeah, we are only sending out 720 today. But again, that is, you know, if you're finding that we are not as clear, maybe on a 4K TV, let us know in chat. And that will you know, allow us, because again, all of our equipment, John's equipment locally and my equipment locally are all 1080p 60. And in John's case, 50. So that is where we're at when it comes to the frame rates and such. But so getting back to the different stuff, is it better to downscale than to upscale? Yes. So for the most part, it's better to shoot higher and send out lower. And this is where John was making the equipment comments too, about how certain equipment will get to the point of being able to pass through 4K, but really what the chip inside can handle to actually send out to our friends of YouTube, Facebook, Zoom, Teams, is only, in a lot of cases, can be only 1080p 60, because it's a maximum capability of the chip that was put into the actual physical unit. So buyer beware in that regards too. And then there's this maculus of, oh yes, this unit is 4K, but this is where John was talking about as well during his opening. That 4K, is it 4K 60 or 4K max at 30? And again, that would be max 25 for our European viewers. So there you go. Clever marketing will sneak in the infamous, oh, it's a 4K camera. Perfect example too. John brought up our cameras. So again, our cameras right now, we've got 1080p 60 models, and we also got, coming soon, 4K 60p cameras. But there are some manufacturers out there that the only way you could actually get that 4K 30, possibly 60, is out the HDMI port of the camera, where you actually have a SDI port on the back of the camera that is only 3G SDI, which means that it's a maximum of 1080p 60. So when we are going to bring out our 4K 60 cameras, which would down convert to 50 as well, so depending on where you are, those will be 12G SDI output coming out of the back of the camera. Why? because the 12G SDI standard can handle 4K 60. So that gives you a little bit of, so John has not been wrong on anything he said. So I'm just backing you up on a lot of that stuff from a technical point of view, Johnny. Back to you.
Yeah, and the other thing which we haven't mentioned, which has come into my head while I was listening to Mike, is the other problem of if you accept my claim that a lot of people are going to watch your content on mobile phones, they are small screens. And if you capture your content at 4K quality, where you expect the definition of the quality, let's take the football that's coming up. Sorry, soccer, you Americans. But anyhow, when we get this ball bouncing around a field, if they capture that in pure quality 4K, if they don't get it right, will you be able to see the screen on a mobile phone? And looking at that screen, will you be able to make out the faces of the players? Will you be able to tell where the ball is? Because if they make it so zoomed out a shot that's high quality for a large screen, the other problem you have is once that is downscaled and downscaled and downscaled to a 720 over a mobile phone signal, will it go blurry in the other direction? Because there was so much detail on the original that it's been scrunched down, the detail's been lost, and you can't see anything.
You're exactly right, Johnny.
It works both ways, doesn't it? It's a heads you lose and tails you lose situation for production.
Yeah,
you have to
totally is.
Yeah, so you got to think of each individual type of user, class of user that's going to be in your production, and you've got to work out what quality and what resolution and what FPS and what bandwidth they have at their end that will allow them to watch a particular thing. Again, if I take that corporate example, even if you capture in 4K and it looks cool on the CEO's screen and it's sent to the other end where you know they have 4K equipment, if their broadband isn't allowed because the IT department have throttled it, but it only turns up at 720, they'll still blame you. They'll always blame you. They won't blame their own organization. So this is a really big challenge. But I'm not talking about it to scare you. I'm talking about it because it's just hit me like a brick wall building all my stuff here. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, oh gosh, if this is a problem for me and all I've got to do is get a studio working, what about all those guys who are running around with carrying cases full of equipment, trying to make presentations really cool? And in the old days, that was easier to do because you get to a venue and there's a screen on the wall. So you know what resolution is. You plug straight into it. You've got full control on what resolution and what bandwidth, etc. it uses. You've got full control on your environment. Okay, you've got to bring all the equipment. You've got to have the right equipment, but at least you've got control. Where we're getting to now with this IP, I don't know what you call it, IP integrated world that we have now, where we have internet connections between offices and studios and everything else there is out there. And you don't have control so much on that pipe. If it's outside your organization, you have no control over that pipe. It's very good for the Olympics guys to have proved, it was fantastic, to have proved that they could leave half their team back in the States in some cases, and they could do the Olympics in Europe. But they had control on the pipe back to their station. I'm talking about the bits you don't have control in, where you're sending it to a head office, from a head office to a branch office. You're sending it out to all the employees on a calling all hands meeting. You don't have control on the whole journey from one end to the other anymore. So you've got to plan for how you're going to manage that. And you've got to set expectations of what you're going to deliver at the other end. Because a 4K TV going down a 720p pipe coming out at the other end of a 4K TV is not a 4K signal. And your customer's going to think it is. They assume because it's a 4K TV, everything's in 4K. Yeah. And I would guess 80-90% of the people watching TV in the UK don't realize that most of their broadcast signals are 720p and they've got a 1080, they've got a 4K TV. After all, that's why upscaling was designed, wasn't it? Because they'd fed us a lie and they had to fix it. Over to you, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah. And this actually is a good segue to Tony's question from YouTube. Hello, Tony. So how do you respond to clients who ask for 4K? You want to hit that one first, Johnny? Or you want me to go for it? Because I've been there.
Well, whenever I've done this so far, I get a piece of paper and a pen. And at one end of the piece of paper, I put the start. And at the other end of the paper, I put the end. And then I have to trace the journey from one end to the other. And then I have to ask the client, is the whole journey 4K? And if it goes out to the internet, then the question is going to be, can I send 4K out from your internet connection from wherever we're starting? And at the other end, can that receive 4K? And mostly the answer is, I don't know. And when the answer does come back, it's usually no. What about your experience, Mike?
So this is gonna, so two things. Again, when I used to do a lot of productions, a lot of them back in the day were, so you got to take into consideration, I've been doing the production stuff for over 30 years. So I grew up with the infamous from standard def all the way up to high def to 4K. Okay. So I'm giving you the perfect example of, I want high def. I'm going to go back to the high def. So we're back to 720p. So this is clients back in the day trying to convince me that they don't want standard definition anymore. They want high definition. So this is going to sound very relatable to, I've got high definition, I want 4K. So this was the big transition back in the day when, as I used to use all the time, when streaming wasn't cool. So the people that were cool with streaming got upset that it was standard definition. No. I want high definition. Back then, there was barely any high definition camera equipment, switchers, even bandwidth like we have now to even get it out of a venue at high definition. So I ran into this similar situation where the client said, oh, Mike, no. I want this new high definition because I want it to look the best. And I'm like, okay. And what kind of internet connection have you got? So this is going back to John's question of bandwidth. It all comes down to bandwidth, by the way, especially if you're live streaming from a venue. If it's local, that's fairly easy. That's a cable. Now we're talking taking an all employee meeting that has multiple offices across the world. I want to be able to broadcast to them live to everybody because I don't want to do this 5 times. Right? I want to do it once. So now I want to be able to send high def to all my different offices. Great. So first off, budget becomes the question of the day, right? Because us as production people, if we really need the client to actually get the actual quality that they want, then all of a sudden money talks, right? So all of a sudden, if they want you to do 4K for $50, you already know the answer. Ain't gonna happen. So it comes down to, so that situation, to continue on with that, was okay. So I went through the whole bandwidth. Bandwidth wasn't there. Bandwidth was never going to be there. I already knew that answer, but I had to ask the question because back in those days, you were lucky to have, in our world, in the North American world, we'll say DSL, and Johnny also has this in the UK as well. So we're talking DSL, and we're talking the early DSL, which was you're lucky if you got a megabit per second up, which we could fit in standard definition. But everybody knows in this call, or everybody that's watching us live on YouTube, YouTube wants us to be at least 3 megabit, 4 megabit, 5 megabit, if not 6 megabit per second. So back then, I wouldn't have had the bandwidth from the venue if I tried. So that's the first thing. So I already knew the answer that of high def was not going to happen. So explaining this to the client is basically coming across as, I can get you, now if you do offer archiving or local record, then of course you could always say to them, sure, I can shoot everything in 4K, record it locally in 4K, but here's the situation now. If you want me to live stream this as 4K, realize that the budget goes to this and the bandwidth goes to that. And when I give you the bandwidth number, I need this as a minimum undisturbed. Notice the 2 words I used there. Minimum, I need this minimum bandwidth, and I need it undisturbed, aka guaranteed that nothing else is on that pipe disturbing me. Because as soon as something is going to disturb you, what are we going to lose, everybody? Say it together. Frames. Because bandwidth is going to disappear, so is the frame rate. And that's why all of a sudden you start getting quality, because you're running out of bandwidth to send that live stream up. It's not the encoder's fault. As long as the encoder is sending a nice clean feed properly, and the encoder has enough hardware to handle that, that's not the problem. Most of the time is between that encoder and the streaming server, which again, in our case today, is our friends at YouTube. So that's the important pipe that has to get used in the social media world, is between you and that social media platform. Or in the case of where John was giving us the example of corporate, between corporate office A and corporate office B. And however you do that gets done is on your own different platform. That could be done in the Z word, that could be done in the T word, that could be done in the W word, using the video conferencing gear, or this can be done on, using an actual streaming server out on the world, or streaming content delivery network to get that back to all the different offices. But that is how to answer the question of, to respond to clients who ask for 4K. As long as you've got the 4K gear, that's the important part too. If you don't, then I would rent, because it would depend on how often you're getting asked by your clients for 4K events. Should you actually invest in 4K equipment, right? Because even the sports world have more 1080p trucks than they have 4K trucks. And I'm talking about one of the largest companies in Canada that has up to 30 trucks. 3/4 of them are 1080p trucks for a reason, because the content is not there, or the necessity of being able to shoot in 4K is not asked for that often. Hope that answers the question, Tony. If not, ask more in chat and we'll let you know.
So, not wishing to be a troublemaker, I'm going to push this troublemaking onto you. Mike, is there a tool that we can use to verify that a device is giving us the frame rate and the resolution that we think it is? Is there an easy way to test this? I've been trying to work out how I would do it, and I come up with the answer. I don't know. I suppose I must have somewhere a device that can hear and process 4K 60. And I'm guaranteeing that it does work and it is producing proper 4K 60. I probably need a reference device, because then I could plug
Right.
everything else into that reference device, and it could then say, sorry, I'm not getting 4K 60. I'm seeing, and you'd be able to do it. But I'm guessing that the only way to verify that everything does work at a particular standard is you need something to plug everything else into that is at that resolution to start with.
Correct, Johnny. Yeah. So basically in the production world, we would walk around with, there are little units, little portable units that you would literally have SDI, HDMI connectors on. And of course, if you really wanted it actually to handle the 4K 60, of course, it has to be able to handle 12 GSDI in the tester. And you literally take that camera's output and plug it into the unit, and it'll come back with all the diagnostics that it's sending out of, I'm currently this color, sending out this color ratio. I'm currently sending this frame rate. I'm currently sending this bandwidth. It spits all the diagnostics, like Johnny's talking about, into all the screen in front of you. And for us in the production world, reference monitors will obviously tell us that in the regards of you plugging it into a reference monitor, and it should come back. Some of the actual units itself will report back that they are sending what they're sending. Not necessarily is your gear accepting that, and could be downgrading it. So that's also important too, because you can plug in, as an example, into some video switchers, you could actually plug in a 4K signal into it, but you would never, the actual unit itself would actually not get, would actually downgrade automatically as soon as it went into the port. So when it comes to that type of scenario, and John's going to do a little show and tell here too. All right. But when it comes to, so there you go. So these type of units here. Now
there are so many of these, aren't there? I mean, there are, you go into Amazon or eBay or whatever, these little 1 in, 3 out, 1 in, 2 out. I use these video splitters all the time. And almost all of them on Amazon now say they're HDMI 4K splitters. And I don't believe any of them. This one doesn't. This one says a 4-port HDMI splitter. So this is being honest.
Right.
Right.
But yeah, go ahead, John.
But there's so many of them out there, Mike, and I'm pretty sure that most of them don't. If you gave it a 4K 60, I don't think most of these would be able to cope with it.
Right. And then if it did, depending on if it had a scaler built into it, and I'm not going to get totally techie on this, but again, because that is a fairly cheap unit, Johnny, and I'm not picking on you, but it is.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm open about that as well. I mean, what I am increasingly, keep name dropping, I'm becoming more of a software house than a hardware house. And I am constantly now having to do presentations and demonstrations, and I've got a line. I've got a Windows laptop, a Linux laptop. Yes, I've got a Linux laptop because Mike told me to. And I've got a Mac Studio at the other end, and there's usually another Windows machine there. And they're all online, and they're all connected to my ATEM, my ISO. So I can flip between which scared Mike earlier because I flipped to one of the computers that wasn't even turned on. So I can flip to my Alienware, which is not turned on. So that's why you can't see anything. And then I've got one of my dev machines here. I don't think the Mac Studio is plugged in. I can switch to the Mac Mini, which I'm using now. I can control all those screens. And so what I do is I have an HDMI signal coming out of each of them. And each of them have a splitter. So I can put a little screen down there. So there's like a reference monitor for each computer where the HDMI is coming out. Yes, I know there are screens built into it, but the whole idea is to have a separate screen to show the stuff I want to show, which is what I always do. So I have the built-in screen, or the main screen, which may be 4K, which is running the computer. And then I have a reference monitor, which I want to do all the screen sharing through. So I use one of these guys to split the signal, so I can send one version of the signal to that display, and I can send another version of the signal to my ATEM. So I can then bring that into whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I have lots of these to do that. But of course, I get to the point now of thinking about what we've been talking about. And I have a couple of TVs, and they are 4K TVs. And I want to get my 4K signal from my cameras and my 4K output from my vMix machine sitting over there. I want those 4K signals to be able to go to those TVs. Now, I don't need a 4K equivalent of the ATEM for two reasons. One is I don't need to worry about it switching live in half a second, because the only people who are seeing it are the people in the room. And it is likely to display the same information or the same source for the entire production. So I don't need it to be a video switcher. But I do need a device like this, which guarantees a 4K split. So I get a proper 4K split to the TV and a proper 4K split to wherever else I'm processing that afterwards. And of course, it then hit me. How do I know when I go to 4K and all these other devices, and even this one? I'm only doing 25 frames a second at the moment. I don't know if this device would survive 50 frames. And if it did, would 50 frames come out the other end?
You hope.
Well, indeed.
Yeah, you would hope. And unfortunately, that is, again, it comes all down to, and it's, again, I'm not picking on Johnny, and Johnny knows this. It's all about, is it a consumer grade?
These are consumer grade ones.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah,
again, if you get into the pro
internal
world,
use,
the pro world will
aren't they?
actually spit out. Yeah. And then in the professional world ones, they'll actually either on the physical units themselves tell you that, oh yeah, I'm got now, it's, or in some sort of menu similar to with Tony, good tip. And I'll talk about that tip in a sec. Where you could actually have it bring out the tech of that connection. Some equipment will actually have that in there somehow, some way.
I can't remember what the anachronism is. The anachronism. What the abbreviation is, Mike. I don't know if it was ECM or EDT, but there's a. I'm going to show you that I actually know something now. I'm going to try and impress you here. Okay, so those people that don't know this, and that includes all our customers and also a few production people, HDMI is not a signal. It's a communications protocol. So when I plug a monitor into my computer via HDMI, it also works by DisplayPort as well, but that's not the point of this conversation. When it plugs in, they don't just work. There's a communication that has to go on at both ends. When the monitor says, "Hi," and the computer says, "Hello," and the monitor says, "I'm a 4K monitor," and the computer says, "Are you? Okay, I'll send you a 4K signal." And then later on, you might have a conversation. It says, "Hi," and the computer says, "Hi," and the monitor says, "I'm a 1080 monitor." The computer says, "That's okay, I'll send you 1080. And then you get one of these devices which doesn't have that conversation. And now the computer goes, "Hi," and the box goes, "Yeah, what's up?" And the computer says, "What resolution are you?" And it goes, "I don't know. I'll just see what's plugged into me." And it will look down the line. And if there's something plugged into it might send a signal back. But usually it still won't bother to tell the computer at the other end. The computer goes, last person plugged in was a 1080p 50. So I'm going to send you 1080p 50. And then for some reason, the monitor at the other end doesn't work, because the monitor at the other end is only a 1080p 30 monitor. But because it couldn't get the signal through this box back to the computer to tell what it is, it doesn't work.
Yep. Yep. And I explain why.
Please do.
You want me to explain why? Please do. All right. So the official answer, everybody, is what John is actually talking about technology-wise with our friends at HDMI. This is why the production world despises HDMI, is called EDID, Electronic Device Identification. Again, HDMI, as John is correct, it is more of a technology / protocol more than it's actually, yes, we've all called it an HDMI port. It's all an HDMI connector, but it's all still HDMI technology that is talking between said device to said device, right? So what John is talking about is EDID for short. So the EDID world is a wonderful world because there's a few different scenarios that I could give. First scenario is the same that John just talked about, that was the best explanation of it, is that his actual physical unit that was in the middle is just a pass-through HDMI unit. It isn't smart enough. So this is where, again, you got the low end, you got the medium end, you got the high end of those units. So the low end is with the one John has in his hand. The medium one automatically says, I'm always 1080p 60. So it is the brain in those units that Johnny's got there. The middle one will actually say, oh, I'm always 1080p 60. If you can handle 1080p 60, give it to me. Because it does the negotiation with everything plugged into it to send it the proper resolution, that the maximum quality that all of those devices can handle. Why? Because that unit is smart enough to go out every port that something connects to, go, oh, and does the whole conversation. I love that conversation, John, and I'm glad we got that in video. The hi and hellos, right? So who's dealing with all the hellos is that physical unit that has enough of a brain in it now that anything that plugs into it, it quizzes it. It takes care of it. So it's not a dumb HDMI splitter. It's a smart HDMI splitter. Now in the broadcast world, we go one step further where we will actually get into the point of time synchronization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not going down that road. That's why I'm saying there's a low, middle, and a high, right? And even then, you're out of usually the HDMI world at that particular point as well, because the HDMI will send that EDID, and that's it. This is what I got, take it or leave it, is what EDID is, where the SDI world is a lot more flexible and you could actually do a lot more wonderful things with. That is why
Mike,
the broadcast world has been using it for decades.
Mike, we've not been nice to our viewers today.
Oh,
I think we have to
why?
apologize. Well, because we've just opened a can of worms and just poured it over their heads.
Yep, I'm not surprised about that. And let me just bring up Tony's comment as well. He says, in the Apple TV 4K has a hidden developer menu that if you enable it, you'll see the frame rate and resolution of the source video. Correct. So again, it all comes down to, are there hidden toys that you can find in your gear that will actually spit out the resolution? But be careful, because if you do enable that developer menu and you do see that, if you're seeing it and you're using that same HDMI port to bring into your video switcher, guess who else is seeing it? Everybody's seeing it. This is the difference again between the consumer world of a 4K Apple TV set-top box to the pro world of it actually being a confidence monitor, where the confidence monitor information will never be shown through the video switcher because it's literally baked into the processor of the monitor, not baked into the feed. Right?
So my My takeaway from this, apart from finding out that I am right and it is as big as mess as I think it could be, is I probably need to get hold of a device or a methodology or whatever. I need a process that allows me to get anything that's HDMI in my world and plug it into whatever that is. And maybe that's going to be a reference monitor, because you can get reference monitors at reasonably good prices.
Yep.
And then I should go around all the equipment I've got and I should find out exactly what its limitations are and what it really produces. Because I probably want to learn this lesson now while there's no time pressure on me to produce something in 5 minutes, so that I can label all my equipment and I can assess exactly what it is able to produce, so that if I go into this mixed environment in the future, I will already have a good idea of which equipment, because I've got about 3 generations of these splitters, from the ones I got when I first did this. They must be 6-7 years old now, to ones that I bought this year. So I probably need to go through all of them, check out what they are, what they can produce, decide on what my standard is going to be. Am I going to do 1080/30, or do I want to do 1080/50? Get that standard worked, and then map out all my connections and make sure that my signals, and I suggest you all do the same. And I really like the idea of having a reference device, because if you then go to a venue where you have things that are outside your control, you can now use that reference device to prove that you're sending or you're getting from something else what you think, or not what you think you get. So if you go and plug it into a TV, and I've had this before where they've got a big TV and it's not worked, and then it's dawned on me that their TV can only do 25 or 30 frames a second, not 50.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been good for me.
To downgrade inside it, because it hasn't got a proper scaler. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you don't know these TVs on the walls. You quite often, you don't even know who the manufacturer is easily, because they hide that nowadays as much as anything, unless you can turn it on from scratch. And then even the models, they can have different options and whatever, and they could be set up to do or not do the scaling. You don't know what the settings are of those devices you plug in. So I think the takeaway for me is understand what formats your devices are producing, what's the best they can produce, what you want them to produce, and have that information before you start building stuff. Because when you're at the venue, it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're at the venue, it's too late, especially for your own gear. But when you're at the venue, all of a sudden now, if you are suggested to use, aka sometimes forced to use, certain equipment at the venue, then you know that, okay, now I've got to either dumb down my equipment for that gear, or I've got to, I came in thinking that everything in the venue was 1080p, even though I've got 4K cameras, but the screens are 4K. Now I've got to change all my gear to handle the 4K properly, so that it actually really looks good on the TVs in the venue, right? As an example. Usually that doesn't happen, and usually TVs can usually handle 1080p fairly well. But again, John's right. There could be lockdowns in place where that the only signal that they want to be able to put on that screen is a 1080p 30, but yet you're 1080p 60. And you will sit there until the cows come home going, why is this not working?
I got venues. I got 2 venues I can think of where they've got these in the way between me and the TV.
Mm-hmm.
So even if the TV can support the other protocol, the little box in the middle couldn't. So I had to run on one TV.
Right. And that's another perfect example of this too, is that, again, as soon as you run into the situation where your gear is not your gear anymore, and you are suggested / forced to use the gear at the venue, you are in a minefield, basically, and you got to make sure that you don't step on the bomb. And right now, that very well could be the bomb is, is that projector actually handle 4K? If I give it 4K, some of them are native, some of them are not. And again, I know even the models that we distribute in Canada natively, a lot of them can handle the 4K signal. A lot of them are natively 1080p. So why would you want to go any more than 1080p? You could, again, you can, but again, just because you can, should you? Is the other question too, when it comes to that, right? So that's also very, very important as well, that because again, in the projectors, certain projector models, yes, we do have 4K 60 projector models as well. But if we go into our lower, smaller projectors that we distribute, they're native 1080p, that automatically they are now acting like a TV where they're actually giving you 4K, but it's upscaled 4K using the chip technology, not native 4K. So that's also another thing too, that if you've seen events where production people will do the event and all of a sudden they're maybe feeding it a 4K feed from their video switcher gear, let's say everything is 4K, but yet the quality on the screen looks terrible. That's because they've cheaped out on the projector, because the projector is native 1080p and they're using the capabilities of the chip in the projector to get that 4K signal to that screen. Upscale. And if we learn anything today, we don't want to upscale. We'd rather downscale, right? Whenever we can. You're always never going to have the perfect situation, especially in the example John gave, where if you're using that venue's television, again, there's, depending on how long that television's been there, the television might only be a 1080p maximum as well. There's still 1080p televisions being sold right now as we speak. As a matter of fact, I think I actually recently saw in Canada that they're still selling certain ones that are still 720p. They're really cheap, but they're still
sometimes the plugs, there are multiple plugs, but they're not all 4K plugs. So you can have an HDMI plug that's 4K, and next to it is an HDMI plug which is only 1080p, and they've wired it all up in the wrong way, and it's all now buried behind the wall, so you can't touch it. So there are lots of pitfalls. So I really apologize for choosing this subject for this week. This is the second apology, and this is my final apology for doing this. I did it with love because, guys, the world is getting more complicated. And it doesn't help when there are too many manufacturers out there where the marketing talks about 4K and the practical limit to certain things turns out to be something different. So it's something we need to get right, because your production process can break. It's not just you find that you can't get a good quality at one end. If you have a problem with negotiation between various bits you've got and they start having different standards they're waiting for with that conversation of protocols, it can break your system. And it will break your system if you get the protocols that one bit that can't talk to the other bit and there's a splitter in between which is not passing on the signal. There are many reasons. And that's just a bloke with a load of laptops and, a credit card to buy pretty things from Blackmagic and Elgato and all the other things, And you guys have an even bigger shopping list of manufacturers you deal with. And you probably have a bigger range of cameras than you deal with. I only got, my recent cameras are all Sony based. So at least I'm stuck to one manufacturer there. But even then, what comes out of the output of the HDMI signal for the lower range Sonys is 1080p in most cases. And yet they're 4K cameras. So you've got to, they're still much better quality than webcams, so I'm always recommending people to use them. But 4K cameras don't necessarily send 4K, as Mike said. Whether it's SDI or HDMI, it's not always going to be 4K 60 coming out of a camera just because it says it's 4K 60. And you might have the settings set, forcing it to 1080, and you didn't realize you can change the settings as well. So there's lots here. But my thing is, for the third and final time, I'm sorry. As Mike's explained, there are different formats, there are different ways things work, and You need to learn what your equipment can do and what its backup, what its backup settings would do, so that you can produce the best equipment, or your equipment in its best light, and produce the best quality you can. And I'm going to have to get my credit card out, Mike, because I definitely now you've persuaded me that this is a mess. So it's your fault. I really need to get myself a reference monitor of some sort that can allow me to actually know exactly what's coming out of these devices and make sure that it is what I want and not a deathing quality somewhere in the link. And then I wonder why the other end doesn't look as good as it should.
Yep. And there's also other units as well that will actually, you don't need to, some of them will be just readers, but there's also ones that are also generators as well. And those are the bar, if you've seen the color bar generators as well, units. So that's really all you really need, is to be able to send color bars from the actual unit itself to, let's say, from it to the TV, to figure out, okay, TV, can you handle this resolution? Great. And then the actual unit itself will allow you to change, okay, can you handle 720p 30? Send it. TV, is it up
That
there?
has got to save you so much stress in a real life situation, that you've got a device that you can just say, send this to the TV. If the TV doesn't work, I know the TV doesn't support that, rather than playing around with all your equipment. That's got to be a much easier thing to do. I expect everybody's now going to tell me they've all got one, but I haven't, and I will need to join your club. So that's fantastic. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, of course. And again, so it's basically so if you're looking for these, they're sorry, let me do this right. Color bar generators. And you can get them in all kinds of different scenarios as well. And they're also, if you get the units, so there are certain units that'll just do color bar generating. And there's other units that'll also do color bar generating, as well as what John is asking. If it turns itself into a TV, okay, send me the signal. What do you, it's sitting there going dumb. Okay, what are you? Tell me what you are. And it's a EDED reader as well as an EDED sender, right? There are those units. Some of the, again, price will vary. If you just want to be able to receive, great. Chances are it'll be a lower cost. But again, if you want that, go up to that next level of it, you don't know, you want to be able to send something to something. You want to be able to see what it can handle. Video switchers, TVs, anything with the HDMI input, then you'd probably want a color bar generator type unit as well, that actually can send out all kinds of, and again, you don't have to get totally fancy into the different color bars. If you want to, go right ahead. But some of these color bar generators will give you like 10, 15 different SMPTE based color bars. By all means, test them all out and make sure that, the TVs themselves could be set up improperly too, where all of a sudden you send a certain SMPTE bar to the actual TV and you'll notice that, they haven't centered it properly. It's not, the actual center of it in the TV it's not centered properly, right? We all know we could skew the picture this way, that way, and everything. Well, again, if you send certain SMPTE color bars, and again, this is a whole other topic for another day, but if you send the proper SMPTE color bars, you'll actually see the edge and such that'll give you the proper SMPTE edge, knowing that that is the broadcast standard of being able to handle that in whatever projector, video switcher, TVs, whatever you're outputting to. You'll know that you're getting the proper signal. And again, it's never a bad thing too, if you want to be able to make sure that your encoder handles those type of as well, to actually send that fake / color bars to the actual encoder as well, and go, okay, encoder, can you handle this? Can you handle this frame rate? Can you handle this frame rate? Right. So again, that's to get it from the venue through that encoder out as well. But I think Johnny's ready to wrap this up, aren't we?
I can feel my brain starting to drip out of my ears. Yes, I'm overloaded. I hope you got some good ideas and strategies from this. But I am finished, and I pass it over to the expert in finishing.
You
I hope
ready?
that didn't sound rude. Over to you, Mike.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone, for joining us this week on the Production Professionals Power Hour. Ooh la la. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel to let everybody know in the YouTube verse that you love our content. And don't forget, we're here every Friday. I'm going to do this right, John, I promise. 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. I've been practicing all week, by the way. And check your local time zones to join us live, because we always love you live. And of course, as Tony is today, he took an advantage of us answering questions live in YouTube chat. And of course, thanks everyone that did join us on YouTube today live. And see everyone next week for another rendition. And you never know what we're going to be talking about next time on the production. There we go. I got to learn that one now. Production Professionals Power Hour. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Lights go up and the cameras roll. Voices clear and we're in control. Screens are live and the signals flow. Welcome to the place where the pros all go. Talking gear and the tools we trust. What works well and what gathers dust. From the studio floor to the online stage, we bring the knowledge page by page. Live or hybrid, in room or remote. Every shot and every note. Better systems, sharper sound. This is where the best is found. It's the Production Professionals Power Hour. Building better shows with skill and power. Live hybrid, online too. Sharing what the experts do. Hardware, software, tested live. Helping every production thrive. Step inside, the future's now. Welcome to the Power Hour. Switches, streaming, mics and light, making every moment land just right. Guests and makers join the conversation, bringing insight, crafting innovation. From the first idea to the final frame, every tool can change the game. Manufacturers, pros and brands, sharing real solutions firsthand. Live or hybrid, room or remote. Every cue and every note. Smarter workflow, stronger shows. That's the way the power grows. It's the Production Professional